Hello, Insatiable listeners. Wow, I feel like I need to take a giant exhale. If you're in the same boat, let's just take one together right now. I hope you're well. What a year. What a couple of years. If you feel like you're in a giant soup of transition, I am right there with you. For me, becoming a parent has landed me in this soupy, mushy place. More on that in a bit. And I know culturally, at least here in the US, we are in a huge moment of transition. We were prior to COVID, and then COVID comes along. It is intense in our personal lives, with our friends and family, and the greater community of humanity. Many of us eat during transitions because we lose our center. Transition examples are the daily ones, like getting the kids off in the morning, meetings to actually doing work to home, or from week to weekend, maybe from real life to vacation, as it's summer here in the Northern Hemisphere, or when we are in a super stressful period. Transitions can also be much larger in scope, like an identity change, like becoming a mom, finishing school or career milestone, or COVID, when all of our routines are disrupted. And I think for many of us, we're having a values evaluation. So if you're feeling ungrounded right now, it's important to recognize that you aren't alone. And part of what ungrounds us in these more macro transitions, again, is this values reevaluation. What's really important to me now that I've lived through something like this? What really matters? What new values are emerging that I deeply care about? What do I no longer want to have on my plate? For example, the one thing motherhood has taught me that I didn't understand in a deep way before is the need for community. This value emerged in a way that I understood intellectually before. And now I feel it in my body, and everything is different when these truths live in our body, right? Kind of what we talk about, the difference between knowing intellectually and getting it, like feeling it. Clarity, values, and truths that live in our body radically alter the trajectory of our relationship to food, body, and ripple out into how we relate to life and each other. And this is why Insatiable is returning in the fall. I feel it's urgent we understand how important it is to tend to our relationship to food and our bodies. Because what we learn there, it's not just food in our body. This is how we relate to safety. This is how we relate to vulnerability. Food and bodies are often just the mediums for this. And these are two big things that we need to grapple with right now. So we will return to hopefully provide the insight and courage to turn this COVID transition into more meaningful choices, lives, and hopefully cultural systems, right? Make our dent that we can in our lifetime to these bigger systems like patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism that need major, major makeovers. COVID, pandemic, parenting, and insomnia have kept me from the podcast mic. And during a time there is so much to say and ask and discuss. The teacher and health rebel in me is chomping at the bit to start creating season 12. I surveyed my email list and let them choose which of the 3 themes they want to see. The choices were centering safety for body comfort, how to self-author your body story, and trusting satiation, a truce with food secret. I was a little surprised at what topic won, but I'm excited to create it because it will help with this soupy transition and values evaluation I think many of us are going through. The new season will start the week of the fall equinox. We'll stick with Wednesday releases, so mark your calendar for Wednesday, September 22nd. Another really important update, Truce with Food certification is happening this fall as well. I will be hosting an open house on Thursday, August 12th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you're interested in being certified in the Truce with Food process. This round will be small, so you'll get lots of individual attention and a special price, and it's already about 40% filled. The open house will address who is eligible for certification, the value it will provide, and all the details like how it will be accredited, that it will be trauma informed. I think any of us working in with the body and food need to be trauma informed, and so there will be knowledge around this. Laura, who was my first certifier and tester, will be there to describe her experience being certified in the value, which boils down to coaching mastery and confidence, deep, deep client impact, more fun in her practice, and making more money, which is in part driven by the value you can offer clients from this process. She'll share some of the amazing results she's had from being certified. I actually didn't know a lot of them because we hadn't talked about it. I had just seen the amazing client testimonials she's posting, but she'll share the incredible business growth and impact she's had since becoming certified. And it's really exciting to me to see her succeeding so much more. Many more people are resolving their food battle and experiencing so much more life-changing freedom and results. So here's what she had to say about only being half this, and this feedback was after only being halfway through the certification. She said, getting certified in Truce with Food is the best investment I've made in my business. The structure of the first session is a game changer, with my clients getting further in one session than 5 months previously. And overall, clients are making faster progress with more breakthroughs. In short 3 months of going through the process, my confidence level as a coach has improved, and I'm having more fun because it's amazing to help facilitate the type of results my clients are getting. Overall, I'm really enjoying learning the theory behind Truce with Food so I can better guide my clients. My coaching has strengthened, and as I learn more about myself and how to separate my story feelings from my clients, the mentoring sessions with Allie are invaluable, as I know when I'm on the right track, and it's powerful when a client is feeling stuck, knowing that I'm not alone in this process. If all that wasn't enough, I made 90% of my investment back before we even started by signing up 2 clients who I'm taking through the process. I'm really excited about what the future has in store for my coaching business using the Truce with Food methodology. I know many of you who listen to Insatiable are healers, like nurses, health coaches, therapists. And I love receiving your emails of how Insatiable has enabled you to support your clients in new groundbreaking ways. We have a lot of cultural stories to change about how we approach disordered eating in our bodies. And if you've gotten value from the podcast, I know you will love getting certified in Truce with Food and the impact it can deliver to your clients. So if you're interested in certification, come to the open house on Thursday, August 19th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a Zoom call. We don't have teleportation yet. You can sign up at allyshapiro.com/certification open house. And the open house will be recorded if you can't make it live. Okay, so we have the Insatiable season coming back Wednesday, September 22nd. Mark your calendars for that. And the certification open house on Thursday, August 19th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And now a personal update. So what can I share about what's happening with me that might help you too? Gotta clear my throat. Overall, things have been wild here. Transitioning to motherhood was a lot harder for me than I expected. Pretty hard, actually. I know the pandemic and childcare shortages largely influenced my experience. Being a new parent is so isolating, and then to not have mommy and me groups or whatever is usually available for support. I'm not even sure what that was because this was my first rodeo. So becoming a parent, meaning that was the rodeo. So it was really hard. And when you're in something that's hard enough as it is, which transitioning to parenthood by most accounts is for most people, sometimes the best medicine is being with people who get it and are in it with you too. And so I didn't have that. And then I was exasperated by my own insomnia. Not only is Essa kind of an intermittent good sleeper and then not, which may just be how babies and toddlers are. But I've also been struggling heavily with my sleep, probably since he was born. So it's been pretty rough. I'm actually on a pretty good streak these last 2 weeks. I'll tell you why in a minute. And I'm just sitting in how hard it is with the way that our society is set up for children, mothers, especially when I think of the birthing process, and also just parents in general, however you parent. Our society is not set up for fostering life, frankly, that being parenting and childcare. Carlos and I didn't have any paid paternity or parental leave. We don't have a lot of help outside of my mom, although she's been amazing, and I don't know what we would have done without her. And it's a lot for her because she's older, right? I was 41 when I had Essa, and I really love my career. So it feels more like a vacation than a career. So how to integrate how to integrate all of these changes, and where does my career fit on the shelf of my life right now that I have a child. So I feel like this season of my life is really about the transition into parenthood, and how that changes everything from my relationship with Carlos to work to Essa. How does all this fit? And what do I really value? How am I organizing my plate now? Right. I'm going through a huge values reevaluation. And I feel like I'm coming out of this soupy search, but I'm not out of it yet. So I don't have anything super clear here to say, just that if you're a new parent and struggling, you're not alone. And if it's okay if you don't love every minute, right, of new parenthood. That's one of the things I really had to be okay with. I think that's some patriarchal conditioning, right? And we can unburden ourselves from trying to pretend we have to love every minute of being a parent, as if, especially as mothers, as if that's our only role, in this lifetime. And it's not for me, and it's not for, I think, most people. So it's okay if it's not always super fun. The other update might be helpful for you is, I am, I guess, I don't know if I would say it's a weight loss journey, because in the olden days when I was in diet culture, it was kind of the forefront of my life. But right now it's just in the background of my life because I just have to make some tweaks. Although I wanted to share with you the emotional journey and then the physical changes I'm making, so that hopefully it won't be the changes necessarily you need to make, but hopefully this will help you as you change your relationship to your body and weight and food. So for me, my focus, on my weight loss has been around sleep and exercise. So, um, if you've been following me on Instagram, which you can follow me at Ali M. Shapiro, I've been sharing about how I wasn't one of those people whose baby weight just fell off. Au contraire. So for the first time in about 20, almost 20 years, I'm trying to lose weight. I know you're not supposed to admit that or so say that these days, at least in a lot of the circles that I see on social media. And I'm a grown ass woman and I'm going to do what I want. So I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to admit it that I want to lose weight. I also want to say that I can hold the or the tension that this can be triggering to talk about for some people. It was for me for a long time. I'm through that part of the process for myself. And so, if that is still triggering for you, you need to honor that for yourself and you may want to shut off the rest of the podcast. However, I will say that, what I'm going to share is not diet culture. And I don't think we have a lot of models for how to talk about weight loss in our bodies that aren't rah, 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 what body positivity has become as white women have kind of co-opted it around from its origins that were followed by fat Black women. And I say fat not in a negative connotation, or diet culture, which is, you have to constantly be working on yourself and it's all about weight loss and your worth is that way. So this will be kind of that moderate middle, nuanced. So I have a very different relationship with my weight than when I was brainwashed by diet culture. In a nutshell, I know deep in my bones, this truth lives in my body that nothing in my life is going to change because of my weight loss. I know all the things I thought I needed to lose weight in the past or experience back in the day: a romantic partnership, a meaningful career, the confidence to take the scariest risks of my life, like leaving my corporate job or to get healthy. I did that by learning how to do those things. They are all skill sets, especially learning how to learn my body, especially the health piece. They're not some magical weight loss. They're not some magical power weight loss is going to provide the answers to. So as a result, I feel pretty chill about my weight loss. This isn't to say I didn't have some feelings when I discovered my weight 1 year postpartum. And I want to be honest about that, right? I didn't, just as some background, I didn't think much of my weight during pregnancy or worry about losing my baby weight, thanks to my own truce with food, right? Weight is pretty neutral in my life. So I was so overwhelmed by the first year of Essa's life that there was really no room to think about myself, let alone my weight. I know lots of moms who totally got back to working out as soon as they were cleared by their doctors and focused on staying super strong, super quick. And that is awesome, awesome for them. However, that wasn't my story or experience. I was active and ate well, but I was living hour to hour many days. I had foot pain and couldn't put a lot of pressure on my foot. I wasn't sleeping well at all. Essa didn't sleep remotely well until 9 months. So I think we've all been in those I can only take one day at a time period in our lives. And that happened to be my postpartum experience. So when I finally got on the scale about 1 year postpartum, because I was at the doctor's for the foot pain, I discovered I was about 30 pounds above my pre-pregnancy weight. And I'm only 5'4". So that is a lot of weight for someone my height. And it's mostly all in my stomach from my pregnancy, which isn't the best place to have excess weight. This is another nuance in the weight equals health conversation. It doesn't always, and yet where your weight sits can be often an indicator of if it's dangerous or not. And in the stomach, we know is not the best place. So, and honestly, it was quite shocking to me to weigh as much as I did. And I did feel disappointed. However, my Truce with Food work enabled me to not feel shame and landed my body as a disappointment story. So there's a massive difference between being disappointed and feeling like our bodies are disappointments to ourselves or others. Feeling like our bodies are disappointments is a shame story that leads to battling our bodies. One of the best ways to befriend our bodies is understanding the context of our bodies. This includes when is weight unhealthy and when does it really not influence our weight, our health, which is more times than we think. So for so when we look to context, we start to realize that it's not our bodies are uniquely broken, and thus we feel shame. But there's often other factors we need to remember and address if we want to and if we can. So, for example, we can look at celebrities who seem to bounce back immediately after babies, right? But that's often because they have a whole staff, right? That's the context. They probably have people helping them cook, clean, maybe even with overnights of the babies, right? Who knows? And maybe they're just naturally built that way. I don't know. But we don't know the context. And if we just look at that and think, why can't I be like that? We fall into shame. I'll give you an example in my own life that wasn't a celebrity, but it was a new mama friend that I met in our birthing class. And we had a couple of play dates, and she looked really great. She also went into pregnancy doing triathlons. She's 29 years old. Her daughter was sleeping through the night around 6 weeks, and she had about a year sabbatical. So she wasn't working outside the home for much of the first year of her daughter's life. And when we went to brunch and I was like, you look amazing. And I told her about how like I just discovered that I was 30 pounds overweight or 30 pounds above my pregnancy weight. She's like, it took me an entire year. So you need to be patient with yourself, you know? So for me to compare myself to her when I'm 42 in perimenopause, was working 6 weeks post-birth while being Essa's main care provider. We struggled with childcare because of COVID, and neither Essa and I were sleeping consistently. It just isn't fair to me. It also keeps me like keeping a distance between her and me rather than connecting over, oh, it took her a year. And also she still has challenges, right, with her life, rather than me thinking that somehow I should be ashamed and not bring my full self to our relationship. And it doesn't teach me anything about what I need to focus on for my body, right? So for me, what I did was I did not focus on weight loss like what diet culture Allie would do. I actually center safety. And because I do that, because it will help me discern between health and what part of my weight is for weight loss is about health and what part is just, it doesn't matter. So I mean safety by physical, emotional, and soul. And I find that when we focus on that, our weight will become the weight that is a healthy weight. And again, that can be higher. That might be higher than I want it to be. And it also may mean there's some weight loss to be had, which there has been. So I'll explain that. So for example, when I'm talking about this, I'm guessing I will probably lose 20 pounds. And I've already lost 10. I'll explain how. And then I'm unsure if I will lose those last 10 pounds, right? Bodies change, especially after pregnancy and perimenopause and menopause. And I've learned that about a 5-pound weight gain during menopause is actually pretty healthy for women. I know that's not what is aesthetically pleasing. Often we see or what we're encouraged to do, but that's actually can be very healthy. But I'm not sure. I don't know. And the reality is no one else can know our bodies. We just have to experiment and find out. And when I talk about centering safety, I mean, how can we feel really alive or great in our bodies? Again, it's those truths that live in our bodies that we need to honor, not what we've been told is good by outside authorities. So, to start to center safety, I knew I had to address the pain and inflammation in my foot, sleep, and exercise. These were the areas sending lack of safety signals to my body and compromising how I felt, how alive I felt in my body. So eventually I got to the podiatrist and was diagnosed with plantar fasciitis. She told me to wear shoes around the house, stretch, and rub a ball on my arch, and to give it about 6 to 9 months. These all started to reduce the pain. And now I can walk around the house barefoot. Um, I point this, and this foot pain influenced how well I could exercise and how much I could exercise, because old diet culture alley would have been like exercise only counts if it's hard and you're sweating and it's a certain amount of calories. And the way that I approach it from a safety perspective is I have to honor the foot pain and do what I can to support not only my foot pain, but also my sleep, all of that stuff. Um, and I wanted to bring up the foot pain because this is really important, right? I assumed, because I'm not an expert in plantar fasciitis or foot pain. So when we don't have a lot of context or understanding of our situation of root causes, we will fall back on most likely old stories, right? So I assumed it was my weight that was causing the plantar fasciitis. And then when I talked to the doctor, she said, you got to wear shoes. And she told me that it was probably actually working out barefoot when I was pregnant that contributed to this. So how about that for the matrix, right? It was my working out that probably caused it. And I asked, and she said, wear shoes around the house and give it time and stretch it. That's going to be what's going to help you the most. And it did, right? And so that's an example. Now, I got that advice because I was, being white helped with that. My body size didn't trigger an anti-fat bias in the provider. And I point this out because this is part of what the Health at Every Size people are trying to communicate, that I don't want to get lost, is that there are often other treatments available that don't depend on our weight, right? And if our providers don't tell us that, if the media doesn't tell us, how are we supposed to know, right? And if we believe that as a result of our socialization, right, we can think, oh, only my weight and then only my diet and exercise is the point of entry for this, right? Versus I just had to wear shoes around the house and give it time and do stretches. These are all non-food and exercise things. So I bring that up because we often making everything about our weight only adds pressure and fear-based motivation, which really strains our relationship to food and our bodies. So my plantar fasciitis is gone. And I can now walk around barefoot around the house. I do think the 10 pounds that I lost probably helped with being able to walk around barefoot. I don't know that for sure. I asked the podiatrist about my weight and she said it wouldn't hurt, right? So who knows? So that's all I'm going to say about my foot pain. But next, I had to address my sleep, which is a huge safety signal to the body, including all the work the body does to feel more safe when we are asleep. So I chose to look. I know that I didn't have trouble falling asleep. I was trouble staying asleep. And so I knew that this was most likely largely a blood sugar issue. And when it comes to food, sleep affects two major hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin, and our blood sugar. Ghrelin influences hunger and leptin affects satiation. So when we don't sleep enough, these hormones go in the opposite direction we want. Ghrelin increases, leptin decreases. We feel hungrier and less satisfied from food with poor sleep. So I know my body and I know I do better with the paleo-ish diet. At least I did pre-pregnancy. So I assumed I was eating paleo, yet with my sleep being so bad, I started to track my food again, which I will admit felt like a huge waste of time. It was annoying to do it. Yet because I hadn't tracked my food in 15 years, I discovered I wasn't actually eating paleo post-pregnancy. I was accidentally eating keto and it wasn't working for me. And when I tracked my food, I meant I was tracking my macros and it came back that I was basically eating 60% fat, 20% carbs and 20% protein. And my portions were also pretty wild in certain places because I'm gluten-free. We would buy all these grain-free, we bought these grain-free pesto pizzas or, I'm trying to think what else we bought. Oh, like, almond flour noodles or something like that. Everything was delicious, but when you add things made with nut flours, right, fat goes up, protein goes down. And like with those pizzas, we would split one of those for dinner. And when I looked at the calories and the macros, I was eating like 1,000 calories at dinner. But because there was so much fat and very little protein, I had to eat that much to feel full. So I was working on how full I felt rather than how satiated I felt. And that's a big difference. And our blood sugar can help us discern how to differentiate the feeling, which is why I work on that with clients in Truce with Food. So in a nutshell, I was eating keto because animal protein takes time to prepare. And while we were eating it most of the time, we just didn't have the time as new parents, right? It was just grabbing whatever we could. So because again, I have a truce with food, I just had to eat more protein, less fat, and recalibrate portions. This was all pretty simple to me. And again, also at this point, we had a nanny who did our cooking. So again, when I talk about celebrities having access to resources, in this case, I had access to resources to make my life easier, right? It wasn't about having more willpower or discipline, right? And we often fall back on that when actually for me, it was about making my life easier, not harder. I just want to reiterate that. So one thing that you can learn from this is tie food changes to something that will immediately improve your daily life, like sleep, energy, or mood, rather than weight loss or long-term health conditions. Adults really need to see meaningful short-term changes to stick with their goals. So my sleep dramatically improved from this way back in August, September, October. So sticking with these changes was easy because my life was easier with better sleep. And I do need to add that again, it improved dramatically. And then, as with sometimes things with the body, when it says, hey, I need some additional help, my insomnia really returned May, June, July. And so I actually hired a sleep coach because I'm doing all the things. And I will keep you posted on that. Because I don't drink, I don't eat sugar, I get my morning sunlight, I'm off screens. So I hired someone to help me. And the person I hired came from a client who had had tons of success with this process because they approach the mind and the body, just like we do in Truce with Food. So I'm having a bunch of lab work done and we're working on mindset and lifestyle stuff. Like in keeping my room cooler. I didn't know that a cooler room and a cooler body produces more melatonin. I'm going to this bed the same time every night, which is helping. And also I started doing this THC tincture of medical marijuana. It's non-psychedelic or whatever. That has been helping majorly, but that is to get me over the hump and until we can identify the root causes of what's going on with me. And I know some of it's hormonal because I'm perimenopause, but we're going to look at some other stuff. So that's what I'm working on. And it's gotten dramatically better in the past couple of weeks, but still more work to do. And because we're talking on the topic of safety, I want to talk about how hiring our nanny was huge in my emotional safety, or what I think of as emotional satiation, right? Taking things off my plate and peace of mind. This is a huge example of how weight sometimes isn't about more discipline or willpower, but emotional satiation. So I had to work some of my own resistance around hiring a nanny. And the Truce with Food tools are really tools of discerning our needs and choices, and then the protective resistance we put up to getting those needs met. And so I had to work through my story around hiring a nanny. We had a lot of trouble finding care because it was COVID, right? So daycare was out of the question. We hadn't had COVID yet. And so I didn't feel comfortable sending Essa to daycare. And I was also worried about the daycare shutting down. So that peace of mind wouldn't have been there, right? And that's part of what you're getting with daycare. And so Carlos was able to find a nanny who spoke Portuguese. Carlos can speak Portuguese. Carlos's parents mainly only speak Portuguese or Spanish. So we wanted to make sure that Essa can speak with them. And so Carlos found a nanny who was looking for a position. And initially I was like, but we only have one kid. Why can't I hack it? Right. And our nanny was Brazilian. So I was also like, this is part of capitalism and white supremacy, where as a white woman, I can hire a woman of color, right, to and pay her less. And like, oh, what like that? What's gonna like? I got to work through that, right? So part of looking at a resistance is really looking at what's true and what needs to be addressed. So it's not just like, oh, it's fine, you deserve it, Allie. No, we got to look, right? So the first thing that, like, okay, me realizing, but we only have one kid. Okay, that was really actually easy to get through. Like, unfortunately, we have to pay for the village that we have lost through capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, right? We used to be more communal, everyone helped out. And then I'm not going to get into all how those system structures led to this idea that we should be a nuclear family and everyone should pay for their own resources rather than having collective help, right? I mean, if we want to really look at why French women don't get fat, it's because they have universal daycare that's free. Their kids eat wonderful meals. They have universal health care, right? All of these collective social systems that you look out for the common good, we just don't have here in America. And we stopped investing in that a lot after the Civil Rights Act was passed. So once the public became to include people of color, investments in the public went down dramatically, right? So this is how racism affects white people too, not to the same degree, but we're all experiencing the effects of this. So realizing, yeah, we may only have one kid and Carlos and I both work outside the home, right? So that was pretty easy for me to get over after I talked to a couple people being like, you need help, right? And so that was the more vulnerable piece of this was I needed help. The other resistance had some merit, right? So childcare is undervalued and underappreciated, often because it's women and women of color doing most of our child rearing. So for me, I wanted to not make sure that we didn't fall into this weird power dynamic that often happens when you hire, uh, nannies, childcare. Is that like I wanted this to be a collaborative effort, right? She was not the help. We didn't use her lack of immigration status against her, right? This is not that you would think you wouldn't do that, Ellie, but this is often what makes um, childcare positions really dangerous for people. They're often underpaid. So we made sure we paid her well. That included federal holidays. We gave her paid vacation time, extra bonuses, and we were really accommodating to her schedule changes, requests for travels, and stuff like that. And so we made it really, I think, a comfortable living for her financially and emotionally. I mean, we all cried when she left. We still keep in touch. And I wanted that type of relationship, right? Because she had a lot of experience raising children. And so I had to work through that and filter out what were my values that enabled me to feel really great about our childcare choices and to do my best in just a really messed up parenting culture, right? I can't, as an individual, change the entire setup of everything, and I can do my small part to disrupt it. And I just also want to acknowledge, I know that sometimes we want to disrupt these systems, but we don't have the resources, time, money, financially. So that's also not about this. I've worked really hard. I really want to honor that. And I live pretty minimalism so that I can afford I don't buy a lot or whatever. I mean, I've also had privilege. So I need to acknowledge that as well, right? As me being able to make these choices. So part of this health and weight loss journey that most people don't talk about is, but that we talk about 80% of my programs is what emotionally weighs on us that in my case didn't leave time for cooking or working out. But earlier in my journey, it would have caused me to turn to food because of my overwhelm. But I've worked through that because I worked on my story. So I just want to, emphasize that emotional safety is a big part of this. And lastly, in terms of safety, I focused on working out, specifically weight training. As we get older, and especially now that I'm over 40, weightlifting is essential for bone preservation, health, balance, all of these things we need to think about as we age. And again, at first I had to acknowledge how much I could do with my foot pain. I don't believe in no pain, no gain. I think overriding pain costs us most times. And I also had a lot of stops and starts because I kept injuring myself. I was trying to work out from home. And I mean, one day my back totally froze up. I was crying. I mean, it was painful. And let me tell you, I did unmedicated childbirth, and this brought me to tears. Um, this back pain. And I also couldn't lift up Essa at times. And then we all got COVID in February. So that was just for us, fortunately, it was mostly just fatigue. That's how COVID affected us. So for me, I knew I needed how to focus my workouts on form and weight training. So that guided how I chose a workout and hired a trainer, because I was quite out of shape from pregnancy in the first year of motherhood. Um, and again, I worked out all during pregnancy and was active the first year, but my muscle and core had just atrophied. So I really focused on how would my body feel more safe, right? Um, and yeah, and the cool thing is even though my sleep was really bad in May, June, and July, the lifting has really given me energy rather than taking energy away. Again, when I was in diet culture, I pushed myself no matter what. And I thought I had to do tons of cardio, which actually drains me. So a big part of my own Truce with Food journey was not only unlearning good and bad food ideas, but also exercise judgments too. Also timing expectations. So I've lost about 10 pounds centering safety. And that I started in mid-October. I probably lost, I think I weighed myself in October and then I weighed myself again when I hired my trainer in March. So I had lost about 3 pounds then. And again, I was going very slowly because of my foot injury. And then from March to Ju- June, I lost about 7 more pounds. And then I only weigh myself every 6 to 8 weeks. So yeah, so it's been a slow weight loss, but I can be chill about it because I know how sustainable weight loss works, right? I'm not going to gain this weight back. I mean, maybe I will. I shouldn't say never, never, but I'm not doing this in a restrictive or really fast way. So I'm not sacrificing safety at the expense of results. And I also know nothing in my life is going to change because I lose weight. I feel that deeply. And I feel so much better in my body, right? I'm sleeping better than I was. My foot pain is gone. I'm not injuring myself when I pick up my son or lift groceries or anything like what was happening before. And ultimately, that's the point. So I hope my personal update helped you in some way and helped you really understand why centering safety to me is a much more sustainable way to lose weight, also fun and enlivening. And if weight's supposed to happen, it'll happen. And I can't wait to return September 22nd for Dynamite Insatiable season. I have some amazing guests lined up. I'm also going to do some solo shows. So if also just last CTA, if you're interested in certification and if you're a practitioner, a healing practitioner who values mastery, deep impact, and want a path to a successful business as an integrative health coach, therapist, leader, check out my Truce with Food certification open house at alishapiro.com/certification open house. Thanks. And if I don't connect with you on the gram, I will see you all September 22nd or the certification open house. I'll see you all on September 22nd.